Maximizer.
Maximizer.
Hey everyone, and welcome to my studio. I'm Anso, and today we are doing a debrief on my recent trip to New York City and the New York Custom Knife Show. This is the third episode of preparing for the New York Custom Show, and today is the fifth day home after returning from the most amazing trip to New York City. The knife show was amazing. This time I brought my family to the show. This is Karina's, my wife, first knife show in the US since 2013, where we did the Hawaiian knife show and got married on Hawaii, by the way. The knife show was amazing. New York City was amazing as always. Traveling family made this a whole different trip than I'm used to, but nonetheless it was an amazing trip. The knife show itself was a tremendously good crowd, good sales, great meeting new and old friends, and all in all it was just an amazing experience.
Kan du sige amazing flere gange?
Amazing, amazing, amazing experience. One of the things that I really enjoy about the New York Custom Knife Show is that it's a small show, about 100 exhibitors, and in my opinion that's the perfect size show. I also do other shows and attend other shows. The Blade Show in Atlanta, around 1,500 tables, which is insane. The New York Custom Knife Show has a size where you, as a visitor, can walk around, talk with everybody, and be back for a second cut and talk with everybody once again and still be over in less than a day. I find that amazing. It's a show where you get to talk to a lot of people, and I absolutely love that. One of the key reasons why I do knife shows is to meet with friends, customers, and show my stuff. And for doing that, the New York Custom Show is just perfect. I brought a handful of casinos, a handful of Aras, and a few Zeros. The show is a 2-day show, and in my mind I had kind of divided the amount of knives that I brought so I could show knives on Friday and on Saturday. The way I do shows now is a little different than I did in the past. Last year's New York Custom Knife Show was my first American knife show in more than a decade, where I did a first come, first serve sale, and I did exactly the same at this year's show. Up until last year's show, I was doing lotteries. Lotteries were great for a number of years because it gave everybody a chance. I think that concept for me got watered out somewhat, especially because it ended out being a process where people would just enter the lotteries onto the next lottery, enter the lotteries onto the next lottery. And I didn't actually get to talk with people, which actually lotteries were really good at facilitating. The lotteries, you would pull a name, call the guy, and he would show up, and you had all the time in the world to talk with the guy who got to buy that knife. That's how lotteries worked for a good number of years. But towards the end of at least my lottery period, I was just experiencing a lack of attention and less talk. So I decided last year it would be first come, first serve, and I loved it. So that's what I did this year. There's really no judging here. I just didn't like how the lotteries had become a thing of the industry and what it had become. But doing a first come, first serve actually allowed me to take a step back and become a knife maker who had to sell a product, where with the lotteries, you had a tendency to just become accustomed to selling everything on your table. And I think that going back to selling first come, first serve had some kind of humbling experience for me, and I actually really appreciated that. Generally for knife shows, you have a early opening for VIP and then a general admission a few hours later. So the New York Custom Knife Show opened up on Friday at 11 a.m. for VIP and at 1 p.m. for general admission. At 11, there is a huge line formed outside of the show for people waiting to get in. And as usual, there was a hectic first couple of hours at the show where people were running around and getting to talk and getting to buy, and it was fantastic. And I was so grateful that Karina was at the booth with me, because we were swamped with customers the first couple of hours, and I was just so happy. And my original plan about saving knives for Saturday kind of went out the window, kind of by demand and kind of because I was thinking, if there's a chance to sell, you should sell. You'd have no idea what's going on tomorrow. While we were selling knives, I added knives to the table. And I believe we brought a total of 18 knives to the show. 6 casinos, 6 Aras, 2 Zeros, and 4 Astras. And then a bunch of carabiners, pry tools, beads, screwdrivers, the whole accessory section from my website. We basically brought a wide section of everything. And that's something that I've come to experience, that especially a show like the New York Custom Show, maybe you can't afford a knife, but you can afford a pry tool, a screwdriver, and that gives people something to bring home. And I really enjoy that. I bring stuff home myself, of course, so why shouldn't I bring something for the audience as well?
So Jens, did you buy anything yourself?
Yes, not a whole lot. I did get some. Generally, when I go to knife shows, I will bring back tons of material. Just the fact that I can hand-pick material from all the vendors is great. That's something I generally do at the Blade Show in Atlanta or Blade Show West. This show, there wasn't really much material to be bought. The only thing I brought back was a piece of Damascus, a piece of carbon Damascus by Colin McGuire, which is actually not intended for a knife project. I don't exactly know what I'm gonna do with it, but I actually think I'm gonna do some forging of something, and I thought this could be a handle on a spoon or something. So this was both to get something cool with me back home and to support a really great artist as well. That's something that I think is extremely important as well. If you see something that's cool, do something to support that artist. And I found some really cool flashlights. Nothing special. These are relatively inexpensive flashlights, but they put out 1300 lumens, which is kind of insane. I used to be really interested in flashlights, and I still have a bunch of Surefires, and these just beats everything I ever had out of the water. The only thing that I don't particularly like about these are they're programmable, and I suck at that, so I always end up hitting something weird. But what? They're quite intense and $60, so how can you go wrong with that? I sent the kids out to have fun at the show, instructed them that don't touch anything unless you get permission, but both Rosa Margaret and Martin got home with about 1,000 stickers. So for that alone, just thank you everybody who handed my kids stickers. But specifically, Martin just had a blast at the show. I would have thought that after an hour or two they would be kind of bored and wanted to do something else. But Martin stayed and walked around the show most of the day. On Saturday, I thought that I would just go to the show alone, but he insisted that he wanted to come. So he was basically there the full weekend and walking around and talking with everybody. Martin is 11 years old and his English was fairly well before going to the show, but he probably had a year's worth of English education at the show. He talked with everybody and got to handle half of all the knives at the show, I guess, by the sound of it. And he got home with his own EDC kit package. Especially thanks to Tom from Notorious EDC, who gifted him this pouch, but that's not it. He also gifted him one of his bottle rockets here, and that's just so cool. OEG EDC gifted him one of these openers here. August Made gifted him one of these small thingies here, which I think is really cool. And he asked if he could buy a knife. I said, sure, what's the price? And he actually found a $55 knife and got to pay $50 for it. So I said, well, here's some money, go buy a knife. And he bought a cool little knife from a company that I actually wasn't really familiar with until I looked into it. This is a K2 knife by Reiki. And I'm actually quite proud of him for picking out something that is not overly ridiculous. If you're 11 years old and love computer gaming, and I would have thought that he would bring back something outrageous like I would have when I was 11. But I actually find this to be a very purposeful built folder with a cool mechanism, and the overall aesthetics on it is actually something that I approve of. So I'm actually really proud of him for bringing back something with actually some actual useful features. So he started out his own little collection of EDC gear, and I'm just overly proud of his experience at the show, and so grateful for how well my kids was received at the show. That was such an amazing thing as a parent, to just see everybody treating them so well. One of the really cool things about every single knife show I go to is all the people that I meet. Often I will get to see some of my old work, and at this show I actually got to handle one of the very first Anso sheep's foot that I made probably around 20 years ago or more. It was a Damasteel piece with a 2-year wood handle. The kydex looked like, I don't even want to think about it, but let's just say you could definitely see some improvement over time. One of the things that this piece reminded me of was that for a number of years I put a 14-karat gold dot on the blade, and maybe now it's time to actually tell the story behind that, because I was making one of these Anso sheep's foot and I drilled a hole in the wrong place in the blade, and I thought, I don't want to waste a perfectly good piece of Damasteel. So what do? I put a 14-karat gold dot in there and said, well, this is a bonus for you, my friend. Except what happened was that I probably made 50 blades with a gold dot in there because it looks cool and that's what people wanted. So here's a hint for you: if you're a knife maker, if you show it, people want it. I also saw a very rare, one-of-a-kind piece I did years ago. I also saw a prototype that I did for a project that never happened, but I've forgotten all about that knife model. So seeing it and handle it again was really cool.
You brought a whole bunch of different knives and different products for the show. Which one was the most popular?
That's very easy. The Aras was definitely the most sought after knife on the table. I brought 6 and they sold out pretty much like that. There were so many people who came to my table specifically to see the Aras. So obviously I brought my own that I had in my pocket. So even after selling out, I had a knife to show. But if a knife maker has a knife in his pocket at a knife show, eventually it will grow legs and walk away. So actually on Saturday afternoon, I was actually persuaded to sell my Ultim Aras right out of my pocket. So the first thing I did when I returned was to build another Ultim Aras for myself, because I can't be without one of these, of course. So all the attention to the Aros project at the show really reinforced my belief that this is the most important knife project I ever designed. Next time I'm traveling will be for the Blade Show West in Salt Lake City. I'll be there with Giant Mouse. The next knife show that I will set up at with my custom knives will be the New York Custom Show in August 25. I really hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember, the order book for the Aros is open. There's a link below. Like, subscribe, tell a friend, help this channel to grow, and until next time, see you later.